Hello, my name is Emil Sildes. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at FlashGrid. I'm very happy to be here at the NoCOUG 2020 Virtual Summer Conference, presenting the Ready, Set, Go Oracle Database Server on Azure in 30 minutes talk. My company, FlashGrid, provides innovative software products for Oracle database infrastructures on public clouds and in the data center. And today, I will speak about a new way to establish an Oracle database server on Azure using our SkyBase product. With a suggested approach, you can launch a customized Oracle database on Azure in 30 minutes in a robust and repeatable way with a guaranteed result. And I'm joined today by FlashGrid CEO and CTO Art Danielov, who will do the technical presentation of SkyBase at the end of this talk. First, I'd like to mention our great relationship with Microsoft, with Azure solution teams working closely with FlashGrid on implementing Oracle databases on the Azure cloud when customers require this. Azure lists our solution for Oracle databases in their documentation. And very recently, we received two important recognitions: the 2020 Microsoft Partner of the Year Finalist Award and Azure Cloud Platform Competency. Now on to the presentation. Before we dive deep into what SkyBase has to offer, let us stop for a moment to review what options are there to deploy an Oracle database on Azure. One's first reaction would be to provision an Azure VM, attach some storage to it, install the database, patch and configure it, and be in full control of the database server. Myself, I'm a DIY person and really enjoy the process of doing something, but not always the result. Whether a home improvement project or a database setup, quite often you make mistakes in the process. And with an enterprise-grade database, the mistakes can be expensive. And the consequences can range anywhere from sleepless nights studying manuals and fixing errors to actual data loss. So DIY is good when implementation time is not a factor and trial and error is permitted, but this is seldom the case. And as you will see later, some requirements, as for example, having a database with extremely high storage performance, requires more than throwing an Azure VM and some disks at it. Getting closer to the main theme of today's talk, SkyBase is our proposed way to deploy database systems as infrastructure as code. Why should you struggle with building a database from a set of infrastructure and software components when you can have a neat ARM template that does everything for you, from provisioning the infrastructure VMs and storage to installing and patching the database, and providing you with an architecture that matches your requirements and is guaranteed to work with all the components fitting together and the database working out of the box. Let's go through what SkyBase is. And by the way, if you will have questions during the presentation, please drop them in the Zoom chat and we will answer them. Just like a hardware engineered system that was delivered to your data center pre-built, pre-tested, pre-configured, ready to use immediately after connected, SkyBase is an engineered cloud system, a virtual appliance that you deploy in your Azure account. It is important to understand that SkyBase is not a managed database service. It is a virtual appliance that is in your hands and under your control from the very beginning. SkyBase can provide extremely high storage I/O by using local SSDs. This feature is coming soon to our SkyBase for Azure implementation. I know it's in the final stages of development and testing right now. If your implementations require custom security hardening, we are also working on implementing the Center for Internet Security, CIS, hardening for SkyBase images as an option. After you have deployed your database, how do you make sure its infrastructure works as intended for the lifetime of the system? SkyBase comes with 24/7 customer support worldwide with 30-minute response time to critical issues. And finally, just 30 minutes are required to launch a fully configured and ready-to-use Oracle server on Azure with SkyBase. Now let's take a look at two proposed SkyBase architectures, starting from the standard one, the left diagram. The standard configuration can use a wide variety of Azure VMs. The architecture uses premium SSD disks grouped together to provide storage layer for the database. The storage performance has been measured at 80,000 IOPS and throughput at 2 gigabytes per second. So we do have a question from attendee. Is SkyBase available on Azure platform as a service? Art, would you like to answer the question?
Yes. So the SkyBase is available as for deployment on Azure VMs. So it's not platform as a service. Like Emil said, it's a virtual appliance. So it's deployed through Azure Resource Manager template, but directly to Azure VMs. So it's not platform as a service.
Thank you. So back to the standard architecture, the left diagram. As I will show later, every parameter of the SkyBase setup can be configured online and then deployed as an infrastructure as code ARM template. Moving to a more extreme use case, to the right, is an implementation architecture when you need extreme storage performance. With the configuration, you can have an order of magnitude higher storage performance than with the standard setup. This architecture is based on Alice v2 series Azure VMs and utilizes the local NVMe SSD storage to achieve almost 4 million read IOPS and 20 gigabytes per second read transfer. If you are already familiar with Azure VMs that have local NVMe SSDs, I can expect a question about NVMe SSDs being ephemeral, or in other words, non-persistent. When you turn off the VM, next time you spin it up, the local NVMe disks will not have the data anymore, as they are cleaned by Azure to be re-provisioned. SkyBase addresses this by mirroring the fast but ephemeral NVMe storage to regular persistent premium managed disks. Even if your LSV2 series VM gets recycled, a mirror of your data is safely residing on the premium managed disk storage. With this architecture, you can address needs for very read-intensive implementations. Now, the solution that you deploy with a SkyBase, the database, is the very Oracle DBA Friendly. You will get a familiar environment that has Oracle Automated Storage Manager, GI Restart. You can use all the familiar tools, RMAN, DataGuard, Golden Gate, Oracle Enterprise Manager with the database. You have full control of database features and patching. You follow the standard database patching process. Storage can be expanded very easily. And the system, the infrastructure is backed up with our FlashGrid's technical support with deep Oracle expertise, combined with deep Azure expertise. Security is always very important. And with SkyBase, it starts with you having full control from day one over the deployment of SkyBase in your Azure account, of the database software, the operating system, your own Azure account, everything. So we never have, there's never FlashGrid hands on the keyboard for your system. Data at rest is encrypted by Azure Storage Service encryption. and the OS can be hardened by CIS security scripts. This is a feature that is coming soon. Here is the compatibility list for SkyBase. It's compatible with Oracle databases starting from 11.2 and all the way up to 19c. You will need Oracle Linux 7 or Red Hat Linux 7 operating system. Oracle Enterprise Manager, RMAN, DataGuard, and Golden Gate are the tools that you can use. We will soon show you a technical demo for deploying SkyBase, and you will see a long list of Azure VM types and sizes that are compatible with SkyBase. You can select a higher end instance for higher performance. You can use smaller instance to save costs. You can find the right balance of cost and performance this way. It's available on Azure clouds, on commercial Azure cloud, US government, China, and Germany clouds, and every Azure region in the world. Technical support by FlashGrid is 24/7, comes standard with any SkyBase deployment. And it covers not just an isolated pieces of the infrastructure, it covers the infrastructure as a whole. It covers SkyBase software, Oracle ASM, anything that can happen with Azure VMs, networking, storage components, disks, anything that can happen on the operating system level. And basically, you will get support for issues that may even not be formalized when you're just not happy with performance of the system or something strange that is going on and you suspect this can be infrastructure related. It is covered by SkyBase support. As mentioned at the start of the talk, SkyBase is deployed as an ARM template, but how do you get the ARM template? And the answer is SkyBase Launcher. This is an online tool. You do not need any credentials or sign up to access the tool. It is readily available on our website, and it will enable you to configure and deploy an Oracle database on Azure right now as we speak. And here is where I hand it over to Art Danielov, CEO and CTO, FlashGrid, for a technical demo.
Thank you, Emil. I will start sharing my screen. All right, so it all starts from our website. If you go to SkyBase and Oracle on Azure, the web page of this product, and you scroll down, there's a launch button. So let's click that button, and it takes you to the SkyBase launcher. So you just need to prove that you're a human and not a robot, and that's all you need to get to this tool. So the tool presents you with several steps. Each step just asks you for a few questions, basically just asking you for parameters of your database server that you desired parameters of your server. And at the end of the process, it will generate an Azure Resource Manager template for you so that you can deploy in your account. So I'll just walk you through these steps real quick. It is fairly simple and straightforward. So first step, well, just some information about the deployment, the cloud type, whether it's, in most cases, I guess it will be the commercial cloud. For US government, there's a separate item here. For Germany and China, there are also separate clouds that you can select. Then you select the operating system, whether it's Oracle Linux or Red Hat. For production, you just keep production. If you want to do just a POC, you get 1 month free of charge. So that's a good option to do a POC, and you still get support from us during that time. And you just need to provide the SSH public key that you will use to access your VMs. In this case, I have my key here. All right, so next. So next is the database version. I hope most of you can use 19c by now, but if you need to use an older version, we can go back as far back as 11.2, and you can select either Enterprise Edition or Standard Edition here. And also you can select the release update or a PSU that will be applied to your database home. Here's the list of the ones that we can provide. And also the release updates for the grid infrastructure home. To clarify, the grid infrastructure home will be a 19c, regardless of the database version that you select. As you probably know, the GI19c can support older versions of the database, and it will make it much easier for you to do the upgrade when you need to upgrade your database. You don't have to worry about upgrading GI. It will be already 19c. Next, based on the selections you do on the prior page, we present you with a list of files, the Oracle installation files that you need to get from Oracle, download from Oracle's website, and there are links here so that we can install that software for you. So the deployment process includes fully automated installation and patching and configuration of grid infrastructure software, and also installation and patching of the database software. But we do not distribute Oracle binaries, so you can download them directly from Oracle's website. And as you can see here, there are also the patch files included. For these, you need Oracle support, so there is a note about this here. If you just want to try it, not for a production environment, and you do not have a current Oracle support subscription, then you can go back to this page and select none here for the release update, and this way the list is reduced down to those Oracle installation files that are available on the public website with the OTN license that you can download without having a support subscription. So once you have those files, you upload them to an Azure blob storage container and just provide a link to that container here. So for now, I'll just use the demo URL. So it will be just a HTTPS link here. And when the deployment process happens, it will just download those files from that URL. Okay, so next is where we configure our host VM. You can customize the name of your host. You can customize the domain name that is configured in the OS. More importantly, you can select size of your VM. And we'll list here a long list of various VM size types and sizes with information about the number of cores and amount of memory, and also the storage throughput. So you can select the one that matches your needs. And only those types are listed here that actually make sense for running Oracle database. If your region supports availability zones and you want to use those availability zones, you can select it here, and you can select a specific availability zone. If you don't care about availability zones, then you can just disable it. Or if your region does not support availability zones yet, then you can select no AZ and either 2 or 3-fold domains depending on the region. So this will just determine the placement of your VM. Next, we configure storage. So this is the most interesting part, I would say. What you can see here is that we allow you to configure multiple ASM disk groups. Well, first of all, we create a grid disk group automatically, so you don't have to worry about where your OCR files go. We'll do that for you anyway. So you just need to configure the disk groups for your database. By default, we offer 2 disk groups, data and FRA, and you can, of course, rename them. You can add additional disk groups or remove one of them, and you can customize how many disks you want to have per disk group and what size of disk. The size of disk determines not just the capacity, but also performance that you get. And also, the more disks you have, the more performance you have. So you will need to check with the information about the performance of each disk type. There's a hyperlink here where you can go to Azure documentation to check the performance numbers. But the general rule is that you can configure as many disks as you need and with as much performance as you need, up to the limit imposed by the VM size that you selected. The good thing is that we allow you to combine multiple disks. So we can aggregate the performance of multiple disks together. So as a result, you get higher storage throughput. And if later you need more storage throughput, you can add additional disks, or you can resize the existing disks. And of course, this is not a final selection. You can always add additional disks or add additional disk groups after your server is deployed. So this is just the initial configuration that you get. We also automate configuration of huge pages. The huge pages are important for reducing the CPU overhead for managing large memory sizes. But setting the kernel parameter might introduce human errors, or you might forget to do that, and might cause some troubles. So we automate the process, and all you need to do is provide the percentage of memory that you want to allocate for your database and for SGA specifically, and that amount of memory will be reserved for huge pages automatically. For the network, you have basically 2 choices. You can create a new VNet, and that will make it easier for you, so which is good for a sandbox environment. If you don't care about other resources being on the same network, this is just makes it more straightforward and automates the entire process, including creation of the networking resources. But in most cases, when you do a production deployment, you probably already have a VNet, already have subnets configured. And then in that case, you just need to provide the name of the resource group where the VNet is located, the name of the VNet itself, and the name of the subnet. And if you use network security groups or application security groups, you can list them here as well. For now, I'll just select create new VNet, simple. Next, you can customize your DNS servers. So this is by default, we have the server that is Azure provided. In most cases, this should be sufficient. But if you have preference to use your own DNS servers, you have the flexibility to do the customization here. Next is the time zone selection and the NTP server configuration. It is important to have to have time synchronized on your server, so it doesn't run too far away from the real time. By default, we offer Google Time servers because they have some characteristics that are important for Oracle for keeping the time well synchronized. but you can replace them with your own time servers if you prefer to, or with other time servers. Then you can configure alerts. So if anything bad happens during the operation of the cluster, during the operation of the server, you'll get email alerts. And also you can keep this option for sending the alerts directly to our support so that we can react quicker, even if you missed the email alerts for whatever reason. And finally, you can configure tags for just asset tracking purposes. Those tags will be assigned to the VMs and the disks. And that's pretty much it. At this time, we just need to validate that the configuration that we have created is consistent. So we'll just click the validate, and it shows the green light. So all is good. And we are pretty much ready to launch it, but I would actually suggest first to save the configuration that you just created, because you entered a number of parameters, and you want to save time next time you need to go through the same process, maybe for redeploying the same server or deploying a bunch of other servers that are similarly configured. You can do that by just downloading this configuration as a text file. It will be saved on your computer. And later, you can upload this config file using this upload link in the top right corner. And then you'll just start from the parameters that you already entered. So now we are officially ready to launch. And I'll click the Launch SkyBase button. And what happens at this point is it generates the ARM template, so Azure Resource Manager template, and it offers you to deploy it in your Azure account. So by now, you should already have your Azure subscription ready, and you can select the subscription where you want to deploy it. And then you can, we recommend creating a separate resource group, although you can use an existing one. And the location, you select which region you want this server to be deployed in. And that's pretty much it. Once you click the purchase button, the initialization process will start. So first it will create the VMs and the disks, and then it will start the software initialization. It will install and configure the SkyBase software. It will install, patch, and configure grid infrastructure software. It will create ASM disk grips. It will install and patch the database software. So the entire process takes about 30 minutes. I'm not going to do it now because it takes, we don't have 30 minutes to wait. But at the end of the process, you will have a VM running in your Azure account that has all that software already configured and is ready for creating a database. So we are not creating a database, at least not in this version. But you can just use DBCA, the standard process for creating a database, or you can restore a database from RMAN backup, or to import, or configure DataGuard to replicate your data from your existing database. So all those different methods of moving data from an existing database server to your new server are available to you. So that is pretty much all I wanted to show you. And again, this is you can see it's pretty straightforward. Just takes several minutes to create the server, to configure the server, and then you can just take a coffee break while it is initialized. All you need to have is your Azure subscription ready, and the Oracle files, installation files uploaded. So that's it. And again, keep in mind that we have this 1 month free trial option available, and during that time, you're welcome even to use our support facility. So if you need any help with deploying a test server, you're more than welcome to contact us. So you can do it on your own, but we are happy to help you with the process. That is it. Thank you, and back to you, Emil.
Thank you very much, Hart. So that effectively concludes the presentation. If you feel you need some help with sizing your Oracle server for Azure deployment or using the provisioning tool that was just shown, please reach out to us, www.flashgrid.io, our website, info@flashgrid.io, our email. And thank you very much. Please stand by for some announcements after the presentation. But thank you very much for attending and listening to what we can offer for Oracle databases on the Azure cloud.